All right, so if you all want to double click on the slides, I'm sure you've kind of gotten sick and tired of hearing that today, but if you double click on the slides, you'll be able to see them a little bit larger as I go through it. And I am so excited to talk to you today about content marketing. It is one of my favorite topics to talk about, and I could probably go on and on about it for much longer than a half an hour. And it took me forever to get my slides down so that I could fit it into a half an hour because I had so much I wanted to share and talk to you about. But I hope that we can get this down so that I can leave you with 3 important facts today that you will be able to take with you. And delivering meaningful content to the right audience is one of the most effective methods we really have as B2B marketers out there. It allows us to showcase the technical experts in our service lines and fields and really get the brand's name out there in the marketplace. And when it's tracked and placed properly out there, we're really able to show and demonstrate ROI, which is something that all of our executives are really pushing us to do nowadays. And it's part of our jobs as a CMO is to show that we are able to demonstrate ROI on what it is we're doing. And content is one of the best ways and methods that we have as a marketer to say, hey, we have what it takes as a firm to bring you what it is that you need. So let's get started. The 3 things I want us to remember and to accomplish for this session and to keep in mind is how do we create content and get going with it? Where is it that we place our content? And how the heck do we measure it for return on investment? So just keep in mind, create, place, and measure as we go through today's presentation. Those are our 3 goals for today. Getting started. Probably the scariest part of any content is where the heck do we start? Looking at a blank page is not the most ideal situation for anybody, and especially if you are not someone that is a natural writer, it is scary as heck. So how do you start? The best way to get started is to begin with a strategy. For me, that involves making lists because I'm a total freak and I love to make lists. But if you start with a strategy and you start with a plan for this piece of content that you want to create, you will have a much higher rate of success with what you're doing. So when I started my last position as a CMO at a rather large accounting firm, there was no content strategy. It was hit or miss. They just pushed out content willy-nilly whenever they had it. And when I looked at what they were doing, I was pretty much horrified because there was no thought process behind it. And it was hit or miss. There was no thought process as far as when am I putting this out? Who is the audience that I'm targeting? Who's doing any kind of follow-up? Do we know who's looking at this? What topics are important? No thought was put behind it. So it gave me an opportunity, that's the way I looked at it, to start fresh and to start with this clean slate there. And I looked at all across all of our different service lines and all of our different industries. And I said, okay, let's look at timing, let's look at audience, and let's start build from there. So you need to do the same thing. And what is the first thing that you should look at? You need to look at who your audience member is when you're writing one piece of content. And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to start with just one piece of content, and we're going to create how do we start with one piece of content from start all the way to finish. And that's the easiest way that I can start with how to build a great piece of content from beginning to end. So who is this audience member that I am going to create this fantastic piece of content for, right? So the way I look at it with my partners and senior managers, because I worked in an accounting firm, who are wonderful, wonderful people, but you know what, God bless their hearts, they did not have the gift of necessarily writing talking, networking. A lot of them were very technical. The consultants, they're great, they're wonderful, but they didn't, necessarily want to write unless they were being forced to write. So I told them, think about it more as a conversation. You're going to have a conversation with one of your clients. Who is this client that you're talking to? What industry are they in? And what are their needs? Sit down with them over a cup of coffee. And as you're sitting down with them, have a conversation. Look at your piece of content as a conversation with them. So let's pick your ideal client and say, okay, this is who my audience member is for this piece of content, and this is who they are, this is their industry, and start there. Second, that blank piece of paper. It scares the crap out of them. Sometimes it scares the crap out of me if I'm not having a great writing day. So I know a couple people have had differing opinions, we'll call them, on using ghostwriters. I am all for them because it gets your content written quicker and the original thought and the original ideas are there. If you have your partner, senior manager, whoever the thought leaders are behind this content, sit down with a ghostwriter for an hour over the phone. They can put together a draft and an outline very quickly. Usually it takes them a couple of days to turn it around. You can put that piece of paper then, that initial draft, in front of your partners. They can review it and you're able to turn out content so much faster than asking them to sit down in front of a computer. Some people are very natural born writers. They love to write. Great, let them write. They can send you the drafts, you can edit them, and you can produce their content then. However, a lot of them aren't natural writers, and they are going to fight it tooth and nail. Say they're being forced to write this as part of their performance plan and metrics for the years. And they're saying, okay, we want you, or you've been assigned because you're an expert in cybersecurity. We need you to write 3 pieces this year on articles on cybersecurity. Well, that's great, but maybe they don't know how to write, a really great article, and they haven't been writing a whole lot since they left college. So let's make it easy for them. Let's help them with ghostwriters. Put money aside in your marketing budget if you're able to for that. All right. Second, picking your topic. What is important to your clients and your audience member right now? Because remember, you're keeping one person in mind as you're writing this, and you're going to write this as if you're writing to your favorite client, and that way you can broaden it to clients in those industries and those individuals in a broader scale. So what is important to that client's industry? What's timely for them right now? What is it that they're talking about? What is critical? Ask them if you're close with that person. If not, one of my favorite things to do is to assign a senior marketing associate. And this gives them the opportunity to really understand the firm's services a lot better, in the industries a lot better, and get closer with the clients. It takes all of 20 minutes of research for the marketers to go on their website, take a look at what associations they belong to, what conferences they're attending, and then research those conferences. What are the topics that are going to be spoken about at those conferences? And just make a list of them. Then go and talk with the partner, senior manager, and say, okay, here's what your clients are interested in talking about right now. Here's our services and our solutions. How can we bring these together and talk about something that's meaningful to them right now? Because if you're writing content, it needs to be married so that it's important to them. You want to talk about content that is meaningful and relevant. Because if you're writing about some tax technical updates, yes, they need to be known. Yes, you need to get it out there, but you also need to put a spin on it that's meaningful to them. So what can you do to talk about your solutions that are meaningful to your clients? And how can you make it important to them? It doesn't take a lot of work to be able to do that. And if you're able to do it well, your partners are going to love you because you're adding a ton of value. And of course, this means you need to answer the most critical question in your content right up top. Make it your headline, make it bold, hook them early, and answer what's in it for them. Make sure that they get this right off the bat because you want to reel them on in right there. What is important for them to read, listen, view your piece of content and take your viewpoint on it? Make sure they get it right off the bat, because if they don't, they're going to just swish on by to the next piece of thing, because there is content overload in B2B. So you've got to make sure that you hook them early by telling them why this is important for them to read and pay attention to this topic. Okay. So you created this fantastic piece of content. You have an article. You think it's pretty darn good. Great. Now you have to get it distributed. Now you have to make sure their eyeballs are seeing it. And you want to make sure that it's seen as broadly as possible. How do you do that? You want to make sure that you're not one of those statistics where you've created something and you have 0 clicks to it and you have 0, people going and seeing it. So you need to make sure that it's distributed right. Go back once again to that favorite client. Where do they go to get their information? That's a good starting place. Are they getting their information from some local trade publications? Maybe they're getting it from some local business publications that they like to read all the time, like Crane's New York News, or a local trade, something very specific to their industry that they like to read. Where is it that they go to get their content? You need to know that. Once you know that, a lot of these local publications, they're looking for guest authors. They're looking for publication, but they're looking for people to pitch them ideas. They need it. So get your PR firm busy and say, hey, part of your job is to get our content out there and delivered. I made that a KPI and measurement for our external PR firm. They had to get at least 50 pieces of external content of ours published. And that was one of the measurements that they were measured on. And they did it. We pushed them hard, but that was something that we really needed and made important, was that we were shown as thought leaders in our field. And so we wanted to be shown because it increases the opportunity of getting your piece out there, getting you published, and getting eyes on it. By all means, please make sure that you're also posting it on your own website, because you need to be making sure you get your own keywords optimized on the back end. You have it all SEO'd up the wazoo with Yoast and everything else that you have. You need to be doing that too. But always try to pitch it first to an external publication. Secondly, once you get it out there and you get it published, you're able to take your publication and you're able to take your content and you're able to repurpose it. One of the things that I love doing is also taking that and having a marketer sit down then after it's done and turning it into a webcast publication and putting it into a presentation format. Because then with a webcast, you have a much broader audience and a national platform that you can reach with this. So have them sit down with the thought leaders and say, okay, here's where I think you've made your big points. Let's put these into slides. Here's some infographics that I think we can put around this. What do you think? And then turn it into that webinar. Perhaps you're able to even get one of your favorite clients or two as guest panels on the webcast. It is a great way then that you're able to leverage and get your message out there to a much broader audience than you've already done. Then, once we're past this, hopefully, you're able to go out to some of the associations and speak and network with the same presentation. We've done this multiple times with great pieces of content, such as surveys that we've done, and we're able to pitch it then to specific industries and say, here is, our findings on XYZ study that we've done. And they loved having this type of original content. So we're able to repurpose it as a webcast. We're able to repurpose it as an association presentation and just carry on the life of this, going on and on. And of course, once you've done this and you've created slides, take it a step further and create infographics. Why not? You have these infographics then because it brings it down into an image, because some people think graphically and they're able to capture it into a snippet, and you're able to share it then so much easier on social media. It is able to take that life of that presentation and push it out. Of course, you can track it through social media. You can track it back to your and link it back to your article, the original article posted on the external site, and then link it back to your internal site too. It's such a powerful, powerful tool to do it this way. Then, of course, we're not done. I feel like one of those talk show hosts or the info guys. And then there's more. And then there's more. You can take those infographics on social media and you can boost them as ads. And you are able to boost them and track them as ads, pushing them out to the same audience members. And you're able, which is so freaking cool, track them by and push them out to the audience that you wish to have it done by title, by geography, by age, by their title, company size, everything. You can literally target who you want it to do it and have it show up in their Facebook feeds, their LinkedIn feeds, and it's all part of your same piece of content. Just sliced and diced, making sure that it gets out there to meet your audience. Okay, I seriously could geek out over that for days on end, but I'll stop there. One of the most sad things that makes me want to cry is the fact that people don't go back and take a look at the content that they've used previously. And it just dies a sorry, sad death. And a lot of times there is content, what I would call that is evergreen, or content that is timeless. It's a service that you've provided. It's something that is meaningful. It's something that can literally take an hour of your time to go back, reuse, and update. And then you can reissue it under and call it an update on cybersecurity practices in healthcare. Changes in 2020. That's all you have to do. And you could just make a couple of paragraphs of changes that have happened, and then you can reissue this wonderful piece of content that you have as something new. Now, what is great is part of your audience that you're reissuing it to, if it's 6 months or a year later, they might not have never seen it before. This is brand new content to them. You've already created it. You've already invested in it. You probably already have a presentation created. If you made infographics, you have infographics. And all you have to do is spend an hour or two of your time updating it, running it by the original content folks, and making sure that this is something that can be reused. Please, for the love of everything that you spend time doing content on, go back take a look at what people were interested in, look at your metrics, and reuse content that is timeless. So now we get to the scary part that a lot of people are frightened of, which really isn't frightening at all, and that is measuring your content. So how do you capture and measure your ROI on a piece of content? Well, this is where there was a lot of presentations today that talked about tracking your lead management, and there's a couple of more that I'm really looking forward to tomorrow on intending. There are programs and platforms out there where you can do this that track it in your CRM and track it on your lead management program. So they're two separate systems. You have your lead management where it tracks it coming in, it hands it over to your CRM and tracks it from there. And you really need to be doing both. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, but you have to be doing really good tracking and measuring in order to make sure that what you're doing is the right things and you're measuring the right things. Because if you don't track what you're doing, you're kind of just out there floundering, not sure if what you're doing is really effective. And we want to be effective. We want to make sure that what we're doing is smart and the dollars that we're being given are being used wisely. So, if they tell you that the piece of content that you're doing is going to be doing, lead management, it's going to be, they want to bring it in for revenue, that this piece of content is going to generate revenue. No, it's not. It might eventually bring in revenue down the line, but no one is going to pick up the phone immediately after reading an article and say, I need to hire you right now to do an audit. That just doesn't happen. There's a long sales cycle for a lot of B2B firms. So we need to make sure that we have realistic expectations with our executives. And that's a hard conversation to have with them right off the front, is to say, okay, what are your expectations for content? What is it that you expect us to do? Because we're going to invest in our content because it's going to help get our brand out there. It's going to help bring us leads into the firm so that we can track and measure what we're doing. And we're going to help bring them down through the lead buying journey and raise their awareness of what it is we do, warm them up so that they're ready through the sales cycle, so they understand what it is we do, feel comfortable and trust us in what we do and what we say we do, and that we understand what we say we do, so that when they're ready to make these big purchases, they feel like they can trust us. That's our job. So we need to make sure that we know what we're tracking and they know what we're tracking, and those KPIs are agreed upon. So what does that look like? Well, a lot of this has to do with setting up successful call to actions. And that means, what is the outcome that it is that we're trying to achieve? Is the outcome we're trying to achieve getting these people to attend a webinar on this topic or attend a large event that we're doing later on? Perhaps we're going to be doing a large event where we want people to come and, we have a big food and beverage industry event, and we want them to come and attend this food and beverage event. There could be a call to action there. We need to determine how many clicks and how many articles to have downloaded before we have a salesperson call and spend time with them, a business developer, speaking with them, getting them warmed up before we turn it over to a partner. How many times is that going to happen? So what are those measurements and KPIs look like? This is something that takes a lot of time to set up, but it is well worth the investment that you spend doing it. But when you're measuring your content, what is the call to action that you want this piece of content to do? Is it that you want it to go to a landing page where there's additional pieces similar and the same type of call to actions? make sure you have determined what that action and that call to action is going to be, and then track it in your CRM system and keep track of it. Because then you can go back after, like I said, 6 months and see which topics were very relevant, which were important, and start to determine, okay, for next year, this is the direction we're going to go. These are the different mediums that performed really well. Podcasts performed much better than webcasts this last year. Maybe we'll do a little bit more podcasts and see if that trend continues to show. So you can start to determine those types of things when you start to measure these. And then another important factor is for really premium content, you need to set up those gates. And this is where you're asking them, to send, you have the pop-ups requiring their email and their name and their company before they download premium content. You do not want to do this for everything that you do. I have gone to websites that have done that, and it turns people off. You'll abandon their carts, and they'll go somewhere else to get the same type of content from one of your competitors. So you need to determine what is a premium piece of content for your firm. For my firm, it was a piece of well thought out surveys or reports that required a lot of time and investment on the firm's part. We put those behind a gate and simply required people to put down their name, company name, and email. And then they were able to download the survey itself. So you need to determine what type of gates you're going to set up and what constitutes premium content. And that's, I just want to say, make sure, please, that you revisit your content, reuse good content, take a look at what topics are receiving the most traction, and this will help you create really good, solid strategy for the next year. So create really good content, plan where you're going to put it, and make sure that you're measuring and tracking. And the good news is that marketing technology is constantly evolving and helping us with new exciting ways to create and reach out our audience. And it's up to us to find good ways to deliver the content to our audience now in the medium of their choosing. So thank you so much for attending. Like I said, I could talk about this for hours and totally geek out about it. But I know my time is up here. I'm getting the hook. So I'll take any questions you have.
Thank you. That was so interesting. And I love how you broke it into those 3 pieces of create, place, and measure, because so many marketers will focus on one or the other and not see it as a holistic program that we need to be thinking more broadly. Now, we have a bunch of really interesting questions from, especially from Lou Friedman, who seems to be your biggest fan. Maybe you already know him.
No, I don't.
No, well, you should, because he's really on top of it. Now, his first question about ghostwriting resources, and he specified Text Broker and wondered if you use that, or are there other ghostwriting resources that you recommend?
We have used, there's a number of I have not used Text Broker. I've used a number of writers in the past that I just have worked with, that I've gotten to know. And I have, people I've worked with literally over the last, I won't say how many decades, but it's been quite a few. Yeah.
Never mind.
But I do have a list, and I'm happy to share, and I can even post those later.
Oh, that would be great. I'm sure people would welcome that. He also asked about link building within the context of placing, trying to get the content out there, and the fact that when it comes to PR plays and search plays, links seem to be such an effective. So where do you stand on? What do you recommend?
We do a lot of link building, and we have actually used our PR firm and our advertising firm doing backlinks to our own individual website, doing the links between our press releases, any external articles we've had placed, and our own website, because those will help increase your own, as I was attending Andy, oh my goodness, thank you, session earlier on backlinks and stuff. And, it really does help your SEO tremendously, getting people to link to your own website. And we do a lot of guest blogs and a lot of guest article writing as well, too. So anytime you're able to get your content placed somewhere else and have that then shared on social media and back linked then to your website too, it just pushes it up even higher. So utilize your PR firm for that. And if you have an ad agency, have them do it. We did have internal people pushing it too on our own social media team. But we just had everyone working towards the same goal. And that's really, what you have to do is to make them. And we even had like our own internal checklist. Here's our author. This is what we gave the authors to do. This is what you need to do on your own social media pages. You have to have everybody just, singing from the same hymnal on it.
Great, thank you. And then Lou's third question was about kind of stakeholder burnout.
Yes.
That may be overstating it.
Yes, and that is a great question. We literally started gangbusters and we had to rotate through. And what we did is we rotated between different industries as well as different regions and different service lines. So we weren't getting content fatigue amongst our own people. You cannot go to the same people all the time, pushing them for same content. And what we would do also is say, okay, we know you have to do something. It's part of your performance plan. But it doesn't have to necessarily be an article all the time. Let's start you off and do a podcast, and then we can have a marketer sit in during the podcast, taking down notes, and we can turn it into a rough draft for an article for you. So, we didn't want to burn them all out, and we did rotate around. We gathered different people come and go, but you do not want to go to the same go-to people all the time for everything.
Well, actually, I may have misinterpreted what he said. I think he was talking about, anyway, it reminded me, just that, how sometimes marketers are the first ones to lose interest in their campaigns, whereas the market is still really interested. He's saying, what happens when your budgets are cut because the senior management is sort of tired of your content marketing campaign?
That's where you really have to show and demonstrate the return on investment, and to show that it's building into your lead management, and that these people are following through and clicking through not only to your content, that it's more that they're going to other places on your website. They're going, and this is where it's really important to have it tied to your CRM system. I would demonstrate and show that they're clicking on things like submitting an RFP. Like, I would track that we've increased you would show the correlation between this person has been downloading stuff off of our content, then they submitted an RFP through the RFP button on our website, or they submitted a question on the contact us form on the website. So you need to be able to follow them and track them and say, this is how the journey helped. Here's how the spikes happened. Here's how it's continuing to happen, and show those very clearly and definitively. If you don't, the executives are going to be like, all right, you know what, that we don't have enough money for this content stuff, and let's just hit the road with this. But if you can
Yes,
show them that
indeed.
it's bringing stuff in, if you're getting more people coming in through LinkedIn, you're golden on it.
Right. So your point about call to action
It's
is
very,
so
very
important.
important.
So we thank you so much, Jennifer, for a terrific
Thank
program.
you guys.
And now it is time for us all to pop over to the main stage, where it sounds like there's a very entertaining presentation coming right up. In fact, we might even be a few minutes late. So
All
let's
right.
pop over there. And thanks again, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Fabulous
Thank
job.
you guys.
Learned a ton. Thank you.